And welcome to SALT's Lunch and Learn. Today's Lunch and Learn is brought to you by LeaderBox, where you can grow your leadership, increase your faith, and impact lives. We know leadership is hard. A lot of leaders feel overwhelmed and are searching for the path forward. That's why we created SALT LeaderBox, a monthly subscription service designed to help you grow as a Christ-centered leader. SALT LeaderBox features monthly messages from SALT founder Wes Lane and will also help you face challenges as a leader, such as embracing disruption and leading your people onward with the challenges you face. You'll be able to hear from people like Scott Klazowski, Ilena Jackson, Kelly Masters, Michael Carnuccio, and Rennie Cook. Go to saltleaderbox.com and subscribe today to grow your leadership, increase your faith, and impact lives. That's saltleaderbox.com. Well, welcome today. Thank you for joining us. My name is David Skidmore. I'm the creative director here at Salt and Light Leadership Training, and today joined by Frank Smith. Thanks for being here, Frank.
Yeah, happy to be.
Yeah, and so as we go into our Lunch and Learn series, as we continue on in this, what we want to do today is talk to you about driving happiness at work and building culture and trust. And so we're going to go into those two things. But first, I want to tell you just a little bit about Frank. Frank is the president of Mosaic Personnel.
Right.
And Frank has the ability to work with leaders. He's been an executive coach for quite a while now. And I just wanted to point this out. Besides having over 25 years of experience as a business owner, one of his key focuses is in developing workplace culture. And part of his strength in that is Frank's willingness to help leaders with the relational side of business leadership, strengthening how their team works together. And he believes that at the root of a great culture is the understanding of the balance between character and competence that allows an organization to run well. And I happen to have really benefited from quite a bit of time with Frank because Frank is my SALT mentor. And so he's been gracious enough to put up with hours of questions from me.
I didn't realize that was like a 4-year commitment when I signed up.
I'm just the guy who keeps showing up. I'm like, hey, Starbucks Frappuccino, like, can we do it?
And that's all it takes, man. I'll show up anywhere.
Yeah, all of his other clients, it's a different deal. But me being a SALT mentor, so that's been an incredible blessing. So thank you for that.
Yep.
To me personally. But let's go ahead and jump into today's conversation. And what we want to do is talk about driving happiness. Now, people might not know, but you're not just passionate about driving happiness, like you just love driving.
Exactly. Yeah, driving's always kind of been a deal for me. My wife has been super patient with that and let me actually do some go-kart racing. We're talking 60, 70 mile an hour go-karts. And
not the go-karts I get in.
Right, yeah. And then taking that to the next step and actually getting my car racing license and racing with guys that were trying to become professional race car drivers.
And so, I mean, like, we're not just talking about going, little over the speed limit. Like, you're taking cars on some of these spaces at what kind of speeds?
Yeah, the cars that I typically raced, top speed on the track would be around 125, so not anything just nuts. But the Corvettes that I got to race, had a top speed somewhere probably around 170, 180, but that's limited by the straightaway that you're working on. The corners are where it gets really exciting.
I-44, the curves just, so Route 66. Well, let's go ahead and jump in because you have a lot of correlations between driving, driving in a car, but also driving happiness at work. And for you, you've talked about how extensively with me, the importance of how you serve people and the purpose in that. Can you just talk a little bit about the importance of happiness and cultivating that within a team?
Yeah, when I think about happiness in the team, you're creating family at the place that you're trying to work. And it's not always easy to do that. Families aren't always easy to get along with, but building those relationships, making people feel cared for, making people feel heard and listened to is really the key to trying to create that happiness at work where people come and they feel like they're part of something and not just a set of hands that's being told to do a task. Yeah,
because that can be, that can lead people to the opposite of happiness. I'm sure like a lot of you have been in a position where, you are in an ideal work situation and maybe you didn't feel like your skills, maybe your talents weren't really being honored or maybe even utilized there. And maybe you were just kind of seen as somebody who's just punching the clock and it's something that you don't look forward to. I actually had the opportunity to work with Frank for quite a bit of time, and by work with, I mean work for Frank. And I saw this happen at work, and so I saw him put these things into practice, which is even part of why I wanted him to come in and talk to us about this today. So when you think about like what a happy team looks like, what does that actually feel like? Because some people are going, I've never been part of that.
Yeah. You've probably been part of it somewhere in your life, but you feel connected with the group and that your skills are needed in order for the team to succeed to the best that they can be. You're always looking for, hey, what does David bring to the table that someone else at the group doesn't bring, and how do we use all of those strengths together to accomplish something that none of us could accomplish by ourselves? So truly trying to just pull the strengths out of each person at the table in order to achieve the goal that you have set before you.
And what does a happy team not look like?
Ooh, wow. What does a happy team not look like? It wouldn't be a quiet place. It's a place where people are, sharing and bouncing ideas around and brainstorming and, collaborating on different things. And so that would be one thing. Another happy team is where the boss just kind of tells everybody what to do and nobody gets an input in what that is. You're just, minions being sent out to do whatever the boss wants done, and you don't have any way to say how that gets done. There's no sense of individuality in that process or anything.
So there's a value for a team just in being able to really be able to speak into things, to be able to collaborate, to be able to share their ideas and their views and their opinions, and even be heard on that, and things to change out of that. But one of the things that people may run into in an unhappy culture is they're just doing whatever the boss wants.
Right, because then that doesn't bring any of your own influence to the group, and so you don't get to put your own stamp on it. And even in workplaces, people like to be able to hang up a few pictures of their own around their workplace to be able to say, hey, this is where I work, and this is me, and I want you to like me for me. And so they want the same thing in the work that they do as well.
No, one of the things that I experience at Mosaic is really a lot of attention to culture. And so when we talk about building culture, that's essential to driving happiness at work. So let's just talk about a few of the things as far as when we talk about shifting and changing. You may feel like, hey, you know what I started with earlier this year was I felt like we had a pretty good work culture, but as the year has gone on, it's not exactly what I want it to be. And in fact, with all of the disruption, I'm really having a hard time navigating how to do this. Let's just start from a few signs of a healthy culture. What does it look like to be part of a healthy culture?
You're going to... your opinion's going to feel valued. You have a sense of belonging. People want you there is kind of the first sign of a healthy culture. I mean, if employees don't feel like the boss wants to see them and their teammates want to see them there, it becomes very lonely and isolated. And so we're built for community, and so that's really kind of what you're trying to create in that culture when you're putting it together.
How do you practically go about building a place where, as a leader, you have objectives, you have goals, you have things that you want to see get done, and at the same time, you want to create that sense of belonging? So how do you, what are some of the practical steps that somebody can do to create belonging while pushing goals forward?
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to my mind is that you're going to want to create that purpose of the company and where it's going, what it's doing, and be crystal clear about that. You want to have a mission, a vision, a purpose. Those words get used kind of interchangeably, and I can actually be kind of okay with that. But just you got to know where exactly the group is going. And I think this is where a lot of companies get off track right off the bat, is they start hiring people and they don't talk about that during the process. So the interviewee is just so excited about getting a job and getting a paycheck that they don't know what they're signing up for. So I try to be really clear when someone interviews with me of, this is where we're going, this is how we go about getting there, this is what we value in our organization, these are the core values, this is how we interact with each other from a management standpoint, this is how we interact with the team that reports to us, this is the frequency that's expected on how often you're going to meet with your team, which is weekly at a minimum. And so you set those expectations up in the interview process. And I've actually had people in an interview process say, yeah, this doesn't sound like the kind of place I want to work. Well, that's fantastic. You just saved me a lot of time and pain and, heartache bringing you on the team.
Absolutely.
And then going, hey, this isn't fit. And then we got to go through that whole weird dance of how to get you out of the company, which is never a fun experience for either side of us.
And to that, one of the things that I'm hearing is the importance of clear expectations. I remember a few years ago, you told me people don't leave organizations, they leave leaders.
That they do.
And
yes.
Could you just talk about that for a couple of minutes? Give us a little bit more perspective as to what that means.
Yeah. So when you stop and think about jobs you've liked or teachers you've liked, it wasn't necessarily the coursework that you were really that interested in. It was the person and how they made you feel in those interactions. And so that's the leader's job in a business is I've got to set the clear expectations for here's what we're doing, here's where we're going, here's what we're trying to accomplish. But then I've got to have this space where I can listen to you and where you can feed into helping us get there. And that's a vital part to it. And then recognizing and rewarding the work that you do so you feel good about your contribution to the effort. So in this piece of the pie, I always tell people there's three main things as a manager or a leader that you want to do. Set clear expectations, listen to the people that you work with, and recognize them for the work that they do. And you'll really solve 90% of the problems that you're going to have in the workplace by doing those things. And the rest of them you can address with much less stress than if you have a system in place that will accomplish those three things.
And I love that because you said that to me many times. Clear expectations. People need to feel appreciated, and they need to feel heard.
Right.
I want to talk about clear expectations because that's something that I think sometimes, we can have that on our halls, we can have that in books, we can have that in our moleskins, wherever, and we're like, clear expectations are very important. But when you talk about getting really clear on expectations, what does that look like for you and your team?
Yeah, so the best example that I can use is at the end of the day when you go home, do you know if you had a good day or not? So I think someone, whether they talk to me or not, should be able to leave at the end of the day and know whether they did a good job at their office and with whatever they were supposed to do. So my expectations should be clear enough to them that, hey, for a good day here, you should have made this many phone calls or you should have gotten this many pieces of whatever moved down the assembly line. And so people know exactly what's expected of them on a given day and whether or not I would be happy with their work, whether or not I actually happen to see them at the end of the day or not.
So having the clear expectations, I know that I hit the bullseye on this. This is a place where I have the sense that I can succeed and be a part. You mentioned about the mission and the purpose and the values and, having that sense of belonging to that. Is that a belonging to a bigger story? Is that a belonging to a bigger cause that's helping you have that sense of identity and purpose in your work?
It definitely is, yeah. I mean, people want to be a part of something that's bigger than they are. And so that's what you're trying to create is together, here's what we can accomplish. You couldn't do this on your own. I couldn't do this on my own. We need each other, but working together. And if we're going to spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week sometimes working at a place, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and here's how we change our little piece of the world by doing that. And that's what gets people excited. Making a new spreadsheet, even though we can kind of nerd out and do that, what you really want to do is know that you impacted somebody's life today. And so you've got to connect those dots of here's what you did today, here's how that changed somebody's life out there today. And then that's the kind of thing that just you want to come back tomorrow and see how you can do that again.
And you talked about that a lot, about how your purpose is impacting lives. You've shared that with me, like as a business owner, you want to impact lives, and that's something that's very important. At Mosaic, we had a big sign up, said, this is how many lives we've impacted. When we hired somebody, we weren't just helping them get a job, we were impacting their life, their family's lives. We knew that there was something really important with what we were doing.
Right.
Yeah. When we talk about creating a sense of clear expectations, one of the things I remember we talked about was the yearly review. And I was like, hey, how do you hold a really good yearly review? And you were like, well, you don't wait until the entire year to get there. Could you just talk a little bit about how you keep people on a clear path of meeting expectations as well?
So this is the part where I probably drive 90% of the people in HR crazy, because I'm not a big fan of the annual performance review. You should be doing this on a weekly, every other week, monthly basis with the person. And again, it gets back to those clear expectations. Here's what you're trying to accomplish for the year. Here's what you're trying to accomplish for the quarter. Here's what you're trying to accomplish for the month. Here's what you're trying to accomplish for the week. And then we talk about the week in our weekly meeting. And it's hard to get off track too far if we're having that conversation on a weekly basis. If I wait till your annual review or your quarterly review even, and just now start saying, oh, wow, you're way off pace on all your numbers. Well, I'm not going to be very happy and you're not going to be very happy either. And you're going to be like, oh, wow, I guess I can't get back to where I was supposed to be. And so you've got to have stuff in a much shorter time frame in order to do that.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was really interesting as well was that there was a certain level of like, these are the inputs that you need to be doing. For instance, like if you want to connect with this many people, it's going to take this many calls. It's not just going and, can I quickly get to this many connects? There was a process associated with it, and the importance of having that as part of a team is, here are expectations, and also this is the roadmap that's going to help you get there. And so, like you said, I'd never really wondered where I was.
Good.
I knew if I was like doing really well, and I also knew if I was off course. And you can correct that pretty quickly when it's going as far as an ongoing communication. One of the things that you shared with me as time went on. We talked about the change formula quite a bit, but then you came back after some time at Berkeley,
right? And
you started talking to me about the trust formula,
right?
And so sometimes what happens with leaders is that we can lose trust and we don't know that we did. Sometimes that's not just leaders. Sometimes that's with our colleagues. It could be anybody on the team. Can you just kind of explain the trust formula for us?
Yeah. So the trust equation is probably my favorite and the tool that I use the most often when I'm dealing with relationships, because the foundation for every relationship is trust. And so if you don't build that trust right off the bat, you've got a lot of extra work that you have to get going. So what I like about the trust equation that I use, it's from a book called The Trusted Advisor. I can't remember the gentleman's name that wrote the book right offhand, but I like it partially because it only has 4 pieces, and so it's easy for me to remember. And so credibility plus reliability plus professional intimacy divided by self-orientation. So just 4 elements. Real quick definition between what those are. So reliability is, do you do what you say you're going to do? So if you said you were going to have this report done at this time, did you do it? It starts to take a little time. I've got to give you an assignment and see if you get that assignment back to me. And so you start to build reliability. Credibility you have when you walk in the door because you're an expert in a certain area. Maybe you have a certificate, you have your CPA, you have some sort of documentation that says, I know this situation. So credibility is really quick to come about, but you still have to have credibility. If you're trying to talk to me about basketball, there's not a lot of trust that you should have in my information that I give you on basketball. If you're asking me about car racing, you can trust that because I have credibility in that area because of my experience there. So credibility, reliability is doing what you said you're going to do. Professional intimacy is the part that takes the longest because I've got to get to know you. I got to know who you are, what you like, what about your family, all those different things that let you know that I care. I need to know those. And so that takes months and sometimes even longer to develop, and it's always a process that you're trying to develop. And so I'm trying to increase my professional intimacy with you to build trust. And then the last piece is self-orientation. And so self-orientation is, do you feel like I have your best interests or my best interests at heart? If you feel like I have my best interests, I'm going to have really low self-orientation, and you're not going to trust me very much. So I apologize to any used car salesmen. They're not all bad, but we have this stereotype that says, hey, these guys don't have my best interest at heart, so we're going to give them a low self-orientation score. we all like the sales guy who's trying to solve my problem, not his problem. And so that's what self-orientation, that's kind of the easiest way to explain it to people. So if I show you that I know my material, if I show you I'm going to do what I said I was going to do, if I show you that I'm interested in you, and I show you that my self-orientation is low because I have a more of an interest in helping you than helping myself, we're going to have trust. And so anytime there's a breakdown in a relationship, it's a lot of times stemming from trust. And then I can look and say, which of these 4 pieces? So we use this on our team and say, hey, I'm having a hard time getting along with David. Okay, do you know him very well? Is it a professional intimacy problem? Did you not do what you said you were going to do somewhere? Is it a reliability problem? Are you trying to tell him about something he knows you know nothing about? So it's a credibility problem? Or are you coming off arrogant and that you have high self-orientation? And so which one of these do you need to fix to help your relationship with David? And it's like, oh, yeah, he probably thinks I'm a jerk because I didn't, get him the information I thought. Okay, let's fix that, and I bet your trust will raise.
And what I love about the trust formula is that that's something that you and I, we can actually, like you just said, we can put handles on it. And that's something that if you're losing trust as a leader, you can regain it.
Right.